How will you make sure that you're not losing since you're fighting strong perceptions against your own leadership?
Transparency. That's the only way. Being transparent. I'm here. I answer all your questions. Yesterday I was here for 40 minutes. I went to Tout le monde en parle. I went to CTV. I went to Radio-Canada. I went to LCN. I went to Nouveau. I'm everywhere. Transparency. That's the key.
That's only about a week ago. That, of course, is Pablo Rodriguez answering the question, what are you saying? And he said that's accurate, by the way. He's trying to be, we think, as transparent as he possibly can. He went on all those shows. He made himself available for press conferences, but at the end of it all, it didn't matter because earlier this afternoon, he made it official. He told his caucus he was, in fact, stepping down as leader of the Provincial Liberal Party. Tom Mulcair, former leader of the NDP, and, of course, our analyst here as well, making himself available. Tom, thanks so much for taking the time.
Good to be with you, Aaron.
This is one of those stories, we can't say this is a surprise, I think, to be fair, right?
No. You've been following this daily, as have I. I remember saying at the beginning of this thing that he would be gone by Christmas, and we're waiting for the confirmation of that tomorrow. It was inevitable after what came out yesterday, frankly. And it reminds me of that old story, don't start a fight with somebody who buys zinc by the barrel, because when he started saying that what was appearing in the Journal de Montréal was basically, counterfeit, made up stuff. Oops. They've got a really good investigative journalism team there, Aaron. I've seen them go on very complex files, and they just said, okay, well, we'll just double-check that, if you don't mind, and see how transparent you are. And, right now, there was not only investigations going on by good journalists, there is a continuing investigation by the Ethics Commissioner. That doesn't go away, nor does the UPAC investigation. The Anti-Corruption Police is its own boss. It's a separate police force. And, of course, we know about all of this stuff. The brownies has, it entered the vocabulary as one of the key words of 2025, and that was a reference to receiving $100 to vote. And it was so weird that everybody assumed that it was illegal, but it's illegal for an election or a by-election, but not for a leadership. So they closed that loophole last week. Such is life here in Quebec. I do think that Mr. Rodriguez stuck around actually too long, because it's going to be very difficult to do two things. One is to shake the smell of corruption that the Liberals have done a very good job of putting behind them. I mean, go back to the election of Philippe Couillard in 2014, you will not see the slightest spot on the record, like nothing. Everything was clean as a whistle, and then boom. This 1 month of front page news with Pablo Rodriguez is definitely going to follow the party for a long time.
So I want you to hear Charles Milliard, and he, of course, finished runner-up, if you will, to Pablo Rodriguez in the leadership campaign. He just posted, I don't know if you saw this, Tom, I want to read it.
No, I did not.
Okay,
no.
It says, I just spoke with Pablo Rodriguez, our outgoing leader, a human and warm discussion. Today, he made a courageous decision in the best interest of the party, but one that is deeply difficult on a human level. I have a sincere thought for him and for his loved ones who have been exposed these past few weeks to the darkest side of public engagement. There is still, I hope, a place for kindness in politics. I am convinced that the Quebec Liberal Party must, as it has done for over 150 years, offer Quebecers economic and social leadership that will allow us to continue growing as a nation, offering Quebecers from all walks of life a renewed and bold vision for our collective future. That is a challenge worthy of all of us. The next steps are now in the hands of the PLQ's bodies. I will wait to learn of the party's leadership choices before making my own decision. Today, one thing is certain, the time for major changes has come.
Fair enough. And I agree with him on the human level. It's very hard what we're seeing, and you do feel a lot of empathy for Pablo Rodriguez and those around him. It's very tough. But in terms of the politics of it, the behavior of it, then, we can actually drill down and go right back to 1 month ago, almost day for day. I think it was actually the 17th.
A month ago tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. So Marwa Rizki, highly regarded. I mean, everybody knows her, and I know her. She's one of the hardest working, smartest people who's ever been in the Quebec Liberal caucus. Deservedly, she gets named parliamentary leader, meaning she asks the question of Legault during question period, and then he doesn't like the fact that she sensed that there was something deeply wrong. She thought she did the right thing, and I still think she did. Had to get rid of her chief of staff. It wasn't his, because he was not a member of the National Assembly. He couldn't have a chief of staff on parliamentary money, and he presumed to be able to fire Marwa Rizki from his caucus. He suspended her and then booted her out. I mean, I hope that she comes back with her head held high and that she actually gets an apology. I think she deserves one. And I think she did the party a favor by being a whistleblower here, because she's seen enough and she knew what was going on, and she was smart enough to act on it. She paid a price, and now I think she deserves to be recognized for what she was, somebody who saved the Liberal Party.
So I will ask the question that I think is now, of course, the next part of this. We're going to find out tomorrow more, of course, when we hear from Pablo Rodriguez. There's a 10:30 press conference scheduled. We're going to carry that live here on CJAD. But then the question becomes about who's next. So you just heard Charles Milliard, who sounds very much
classy,
like he's
very
still interested.
I think pitch perfect. I thought it was great.
So he's going to be interested, it would seem. So is Carl Blackburn. We heard earlier that he's already had some people kind of knocking around and asking what they think of the idea of him running again. Beyond that, Tom, who do you think maybe is a contender for this job?
Well, there's a fellow named Andre Fortin, who's a member of the Quebec Liberal Party caucus. We don't know him that well. You probably have him on fairly
I've had him on many times. And, Tom, I will tell you that every time we have him on, I ask him the same question. Would you run for the leadership? Long before this began.
Yeah.
Because I think, first of all, he's a straight shooter. He is fluently bilingual, and he
speaks English like you and
perfect.
me, and French like everybody in Quebec. I mean, the guy is perfectly bilingual.
But he says he has young kids. He's living out in Pontiac. He's not interested.
You have to respect that, and I more than respect it. I admire it, because it's so rare for people to put their family first. But the last time this came up, goes back now a fair bit, and I don't know. Maybe his kids are old enough now.
Okay.
Maybe he can give it some second thought, because he is. I think because Maro Orisky has already said she had to put out again a statement today, re-insisting on the fact that she was actually leaving. She was serious about it, and she's not going to run again. And please stop putting her name forward as a potential leader, because that's not going to happen. But she took the trouble to say that won't be considered in the next weeks or months. Well, which doesn't mean it won't be considered in the next years. But I think that, she was as clear as a bell. She's moving on. She's still got until October, and I think she should come back, as I say, with her head held high, recognizing that she's the one who is able to get this cleaned up. Because you can imagine, Aaron, if this is blown up, not over the past 4 weeks, but in the 4 weeks leading up to the next election campaign. So, the Band-Aid's been pulled off. Who else is out there? I mean, the dream candidate, it's interesting because everybody's saying, it's the federal Liberals. They stink in terms of integrity. But everybody would love to have François-Philippe Champagne, because he's an incredible character.
Well, funny you should say that, Tom, because I want you to hear the the question that was asked. Listen to this.
Pablo Rodriguez is expected to resign as leader of the Quebec Liberal Party. The Parti Québécois are leading the polls there. Do you have any plans to maybe take over his role and save the country from a referendum?
No.
That was François-Philippe Champagne, Tom.
No, I know. He actually gave a slightly longer answer than that. And he essentially said, look, I'm the finance minister of a G7 country, and we're trying to save Canada in the face of Trump. I've got work to do. Fair enough. But who knows what the Christmas holidays in a couple of weeks will do. Because he is somebody who could easily handle Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, the PQ leader, in debate. I would put all of my money on Champagne in a debate between those two. And it's interesting that the Conservatives are creeping back. It's interesting because we haven't seen them at that level since the last election. The Quebec Solidaire is doing a full NDP, just sinking. They're back in single digits, as was the NDP in the last election. So I think that if the CAQ remains in the cellar the way it is, people are going to be looking for an alternative. And right now they're saying, well, I'm going to park my vote with the PQ. Aaron, if I had a buck for every person who said, I'm going to vote PQ, but then I'll vote no in the referendum, these are clearly people who have never been through a referendum. They don't know how awful it is for the country, how horrible it is in a workplace, how terrible it is even within families where people, get torn apart. And no, they're not fun. And the result is known because 65% of Quebecers don't want it. But how many hundreds of millions will be lost in investment? How many hundreds of millions will be spent trying to convince us that separation is a good idea? Now, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon is an ideologue, and he doesn't listen to reason. He's not in this to make people's lives better. He's in this for himself, for his ideal of a separate Quebec. Yeah. So we need somebody in the Liberal Party who can stand up to that. But so far, I'm not sure that Mr. Milliard or Mr. Blackburn, both of whom I know, and I've got a chance to meet, and I actually worked with Carl Blackburn. I really like them both. I think they're great, but I don't think that they're well known enough to a large group of Quebecers, and I don't think they can pull it off.
Tom, I got to wrap up. Let me just ask you one last thing. What about this guy, Tom?
If there's one thing this political party believes in, it's inclusiveness and the fact that we are going to represent every single Quebecer, whether it's on the economy are fighting for what is right and for education and for the support we need to live in a society in which all of us are able to speak peacefully, defend our rights, respect each other, respect our laws, and respect democracy.
Tom, what do you think? Has he got a shot?
I think he'd have more than a shot if he were to take it. But I do know a little bit about what he's been doing in terms of business and other activities. I don't see him, coming back into politics. But great clip, by the way.
There you go.
Very representative of his political philosophy.
We'll leave it at that. Tom, I do appreciate the time today. Thank you so much. You too.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.